Good morning from the beautiful Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Okay, today I'm gonna answer one of my fans, my few very wonderful fans' request to talk about Korea, Koreans, and Koreans in America. So, when you talk about Korea, there's two Koreas. Unfortunately, there are two Koreas, North and South, and the reason why they exist is not for the lack of wish by the Korean people to reunite, but because there are two world powers at odds with each other, namely China and USA, right? So that problem get worked out, there cannot be unified Korea, because China will not accept US military and US weapons so close to its border. In the very same way that US could not accept Russian military and Russian weapons in Cuba. Same thing. And that stretched to, of course, Taiwan, or anywhere in the Pacific, till China pushed US back, all the way to Hawaii, at least all the way till Guam. I would say there cannot be a unified Korea. And you say, well, what about the self-determination of Koreans? Well, that's a very idealistic and I would say almost liberal Western view of things, in the sense that you only see pieces, you don't see the whole chessboard. And the pieces can only move in relation to all the other pieces. And the real pieces that determine the situation in Korea isn't Koreans, but Americans and Chinese. Simple as that. You can argue with me all day long about that, but think what would Korea be like without American influence? Well, same thing with North Korea and Chinese influence. Well, people say, well, North Korea is a failed state. Oh, really? Because they be in business and their leaders being controlling the country a lot longer than the South Korean presidents who come and go. So I don't believe that North Korea is a failed state. I do believe North Korea gone through some harsh times, just like China did. But with the right guidance, with the right policies, North Korea can very quickly develop into a model that's similar to China. Whether that is benefit to its people, you can argue based on your ideology. But that is the reality, the possibility of potential passive. What about the Kim Jong family? Well, the Kim family is a dynasty, but it's a vassal state to China. And as a vassal state, Kim understands that despite his protest, despite his threat or whatever it is, if China wants to end North Korea, they can end like this. Right? It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to flood a couple million Chinese soldiers over the border in less than 48 hours. And that's the end of North Korea. So, unfortunately, I have to tell my North Korean and South Korean friends, if they ever want to unite, the solution isn't America. America's too far away. The real solution is how to make China feel comfortable with a united Korea. And probably part of that solution is for Korea to say no to American weapons and American protection, which is very difficult for South Korea to do, because frankly, South Korea is under the protection and control of America. Whenever you put a soldier on, whenever there's a foreign soldier on your soil, you're not only being protected, you're also being controlled. It's just a matter. That's just fact of life, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not making judgment. I'm not saying that Korea would be better under China or under the U.S. Korea would be better under Koreans, but that's not possible this time. Okay, so that's short of Koreans as a country. I think that both North Korea and South Korea can do extremely well, as long as it pleases and serves its masters faithfully. South Korea serves U.S. faithfully. North Korea serves China faithfully. However, there is a problem. The problem is that the world power dynamics of Asia is changing, right? So, if anything, that both North and South Korea is still in a very precarious situation, depending on the outcome of the struggle between the U.S. and China for control of Asia. If China wins, South Korea will be a bad situation, and it has to change the system, it has to change its alliances, and strategies to survive in a China-dominated Asia sphere. If U.S. continue to control Asia, then North Korea will be in a harder situation because at the end of the day, China is right next to your border. Right? If China wants to do something, it's very easy to do. And frankly, in the next 10, 20 years, I don't see U.S. tilting the equilibrium of the Asian game towards its favor. Not when there's so much problem U.S. dealing with internally and externally in Europe and Middle East and so forth. There's too many fires U.S. trying to put out. It just doesn't have enough manpower and find money to really focus on Korean problem. So, voila. As a people, I think the South Korea has done extremely well. It's able to find the niches where it can make a living, it can excel, such as pop culture entertainment, manufacturing, high-end manufacturing. Yeah, and you know, what can I say about that? They've done well. They're disciplined, they're hardworking, they're united, and they are welcoming enough in a way to embrace the global economy and absorb wisely technology from the West to its advantages. Okay, now let's talk about Koreans in America. Koreans in America is kind of the same situation as Koreans in Asia. In the sense that it's tilting us a weird place, right? Because if you ask any non-Asian, they'll say, "Hey, you're Chinese." And the Koreans are always quick to correct, "Hey, I'm not Chinese, I am Korean." And there's good reason for that, because as you know, U.S. is not very favorable to Chinese. Right? For whatever thing, I mean, there's always that doubt that the Chinese in America cannot be trusted. And there's good reason for that. I'm not saying the Americans are wrong. I'm just saying that's just what things are. And the Koreans, with their face or their body, can be easily confused as Chinese. So that is a negative thing about being Korean. However, once you say that you're a Korean, the game changes, right? Because the Americans perceive Korea as their ally, as a culture that embraces their ideologies, their values, and so forth. So you are given a better shake than Chinese Americans. Will that lead to success of Koreans? I think that in the lower rung of white collar jobs and social class, yeah, absolutely. I think that they will do better than Chinese Americans, as long as they clearly remind people they're Koreans. However, will they get into the upper echelon of power, money in North America? I don't really think so. I'll be honest, I don't think so. And I think that what has shown in present U.S. situation has tested my theory. One is that you don't have enough number of Koreans in America. Two, Korea now offer enough alternative for many Koreans, unless those are really that's born and raised in Korea and only Korean by service are really just, what we call tunkies. Most Koreans, I would think that they're in the same situation mentally as Chinese, in the sense that, do I really want to stay in the U.S.? Right? Because they can always go back home. Korea, the quality of living in Korea, okay, materialistically, it's no worse than the U.S. Often it's better, right? And then you have the family and the relationship network, so you are in a much better place than you are, because when you're an immigrant in the U.S., you're alone. And that's a very lonely, hard existence, even if you make a decent paycheck. There's no emotional, psychological fulfillment as it is when you're back in your own country, right? So, because of that, it's like Chinese in the U.S. Koreans U.S. always have their feet on two boats, and they're also always vacillating between, do I want to stay here or do I want to go back to Korea? And that will cause them not to invest so full on into their time in America like the Indians do. Because Indians, when they go to the U.S., they can't turn back. They're staying there. That's their only option. So they are all in. You know, they're all in. Koreans, maybe they're not all in. And because they're not all in, I think that will set them back in the U.S. Plus their face, plus all the other things I've spoken about. So, yeah, I think that's what I have to say about Koreans. They will do okay. Their hardworking ethics, their discipline, all that stuff will inevitably push them higher up in the social ladder, social economic ladder. But as far as political powers and influence, due to their limited population, due to their the circumstances with having choices, will limit their development as an ethnic group in the United States. That's it.